Thank you. We enjoying the first couple hours? All right, thank you. Thank you to the guy in the front with the thumbs up. I appreciate you. So I'm both a little bummed, but also incredibly excited. I'm a little bummed because Kathy had some flight issues, so she's not joining us. But I'm also incredibly excited because we have a very good AV team backstage, and they were able to figure out how to get her in here. So is Kathy here? There she is. Hey, Kathy.
Ayana, I'm so sorry. I just couldn't. I couldn't control the situation.
We are grateful that you're here. It's all right. I think maybe we can just jump actually right into it because we only have 20 minutes here. You notoriously invest in things that are a little farther out on the risk spectrum, and it's been a tough time to invest in things that are farther out on the risk spectrum in the last 30 days, right? Things like Coinbase and Bitcoin and Tesla and Palantir are getting hammered. And I'm just curious, like, what are your views on the markets today?
Yeah, well, I think today Treasury Secretary Bessent came out and said he's not worried about a recession. We are worried about a recession. We think the velocity of money is slowing down dramatically because really a third, if you think about federal, state, and local and quasi-government jobs in healthcare and education, roughly a third of the employees out there, the labor force out there, probably wondering if their jobs are safe, and that's how you get a drop in the velocity of money. And if you look at inflation indicators, some look like they're flaring up. Of course, there's the tariff fears, but if you look at something called trueflation, which many people are monitoring, it measures, I think, 10 billion different items. It's down to 1.65% on a year-over-year basis, as the Fed thinks we're at 2.8% on a year-over-year basis with the CPI. So I think what's happening, though, is that if we do have a recession, declining GDP, that this is going to give the president and the Fed many more degrees of freedom to do what they want in terms of tax cuts and monetary policy than investors now believe. So we're actually very optimistic about the way the rest of the year is going to play out once people understand where we are now.
What indicators do you pay attention to, like, these macro indicators? Are you looking at things like tariffs? Are you looking at things like the war in Ukraine? Or are you more just focused on, is your mindset, look, I'm trying to invest in the most innovative technology, long-term time horizon, Coinbase, Bitcoin, Tesla will do well, technology of the future. I don't care about the short term. Tell us how you think about that.
Well, we use the short-term and short-term volatility to trade around positions. So I know we get a lot of publicity when we are selling Tesla when it's at $500 and buying it when it's $250. And that is the kind of volatility we're talking about. But we're not wholesale exiting names. We're trading around positions. And over time, that's tended to generate alpha. So, innovation solves problems, and innovation actually gains traction during tough times. When people or businesses are afraid, and they are afraid now. If you look at the University of Michigan survey, even the high-income earners' sentiment has cracked and is down back near where it was in 08-09. When consumers and businesses are afraid, they're willing to change the way they do things. Better, cheaper, faster, more productive, more creative. And that's innovation. That's what we do. So long-term innovation wins as we go through these trials and tribulations.
How do you think about, there's, if you just walk around this conference right now, and, I went to this dinner last night, and there's kind of this idea in crypto. It's like, what have we built over the last couple of years? Like, have we really built anything productive? And I think this is being amplified by this idea, by basically the acceleration of things like robotics. I was watching some video from this company called Figure yesterday, and they're like building these real robotics, and you're obviously seeing what Tesla's doing, and you're seeing what OpenAI is doing in Anthropic, and so there's this maybe recalibration of how people are thinking about innovation, and I think people in this room and in crypto are questioning, like, what are we even building here? I'm curious how you see the opportunity in crypto today against the backdrop of all of this accelerated innovation outside of crypto.
Well, ultimately, we think the physical and digital worlds are converging. But in terms of crypto over the last few years, of course, we've been fighting regulators, so that's been a problem. And I think has held back some innovation that otherwise would have occurred. But we don't think it has stopped the revolutions, the three revolutions we see underway. So the money revolution, exemplified by Bitcoin, the DeFi revolution, really supported by Ethereum and Solana, and the property rights, the digital property rights revolution. I think that's the sleeper, and that covers money, it covers DeFi, and it covers all digital assets. As we see more and more young people spending more than half of their free time online, this idea of digital property rights is becoming more important. The greatest way to lift people and countries out of poverty, if you study economics, is through immutable property rights. And so I think there's a lot more going on. Sure, the robotics world, there's a lot of drama and excitement around that. But it could not happen without AI and energy storage. So these technologies are converging with one another.
Do you see, there's this big trend, especially last year, like crypto and AI and the convergence, and really what that kind of looked like, in my opinion, was like these AI little, maybe ChatGPT wrappers got tokens, is essentially the extent of it, of what it looked like last year. But do you believe that these revolutionary technologies, maybe it's AI, maybe it's robotics, will be built on the back of blockchain, and will it get intertwined with crypto, or are these going to kind of emerge as separate economies?
So we think that what's going on with crypto now is the next generation internet, right? And the layer of the internet that was not put in the early 90s because developers had no idea that financial services and commerce would take place on the internet. So we do think, and I might have lost your question here a bit, Yano, we do think that this revolution is going to touch the physical world as well. It's interesting, I remember looking at something called helium, and I understand from our team, I think Lorenzo and Chris are there today, that it is still in place. It's changed from, I guess, a hotspot provider now to 5G coverage. But this idea of hardware networks supported by tokens and other community incentives, I think maybe regulation it held it back a bit, but I think we are on our way there. This is, of course, called DePIN, physical infrastructure networks, bootstrapped by token incentives. So you've got Helium, you've got HiveMapper in the dashcam space, you've got Render, so users with idle GPUs rent out their computing power. That's mostly to graphic artists. So, that's kind of the physical and the digital world coming together. We've also seen it in the energy space. The utilities ecosystems have been able to overbuild solar and wind, which are intermittent energy sources, because they've placed Bitcoin mining into that ecosystem, which is again funding this overbuild. And we've also seen flared natural gas, for use in remote Bitcoin mining. So again, I think that the physical and the digital worlds are coming together.
Do you see those? So you mentioned like Helium and Render and some of these DePIN things. I know you obviously love things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana. Do you see the longer tail of crypto assets as being investable for ARK in the short term?
Oh, yes, we do. Actually, we believe in this so much that, we have a Revolutions Fund, a Digital Assets Revolutions Fund, where we've built out positions in more than just the big three. And so Lorenzo Valente is leading the charge there. And then Chris Pizzo, we are working with him and his team to start an early stage venture fund here in St. Petersburg. We're partnered with the city, St. Petersburg, on an innovation center, which we hope will house the talent that will come along with these startups. So no, we don't believe this is too soon. This is now. And I think deregulation has really has given not just us, but a lot of people, institutions, confidence that this is real, and that the opportunities here, I think, are vast. And I think the volatility is it's trying. I know that, but we're just keeping our eye on that prize, and we think there are a lot of prizes out there, and much like the internet, we're going to be shocked at how much this all proliferates.
We just, right before you came on, we had a great fireside with Congressman Ro Khanna, and we're talking about more on the regulatory and policy side. What do you think, on the regulatory and policy side, what do you think the real impact of I guess we could call it new regulations or deregulation, however you want to frame it, what do you think the real impact this year, not in 3 years, not in 5 years, this year, on institutional adoption of crypto assets? What will that look like?
Well, I think it's giving institutions the green light. And if you look at our studies, in 2000, as long ago as 2016, we wrote a paper called Bitcoin, Ringing the Bell for a New Asset Class. And yet many institutions just dismissed it out of hand. Now, however, that regulation is coming our way, institutions who are looking at studies like ours, which are saying, wait a minute, this is a new asset class, and you, asset allocators, have a fiduciary responsibility to expose your clients to a new asset class. Why? The correlation of returns or risk-adjusted returns is very low. And therefore, risk-adjusted returns go up as you introduce these new asset classes. So I think even if they were resistant before and had a negative bias, they have to actually come out and give a reason why they are not exposing to their clients to this new asset class.
Why do you think that? I feel like ARK has mainly played in the public space the last 10 or 15 years. I actually don't know how long ARK has been around, so I guess maybe even longer than that. But why are you pushing into the very private, into the venture space? Where do you see the opportunities there? Why are you doing that?
Well, thank you. We've been around 11 years, and for a couple of reasons. We've always had to do research on the private space. We know that companies are staying private longer, mostly because of the regulatory impediments to going, or friction associated with going public. And so when we discovered that at the interval fund structure, which is 40 Act, just like ETFs and mutual funds, when we learned that we could put private companies into that structure and enable and really democratize venture capital, so for $500 anyone can get into ARK's venture fund and can get quarterly liquidity up to 5% of NAV. When we learned about that structure, which has been used mostly for debt and real estate, but originally in the 90s was set up for equity, we said, let's do that. We don't charge a carry. That's why we can democratize and use this vehicle. And so I think it was the discovery of that vehicle and the incoming requests we were getting from our clients, especially the younger clients, who were basically saying, wait a minute, we know more about these new technologies than those family offices or those institutional holders, and yet we're being blocked because we don't make enough money or our net worth is not high enough. And I said, you know what? That's un-American. And so that's when we went about trying to find, how can we do this? So that's been a big part of the inspiration is our client base. We've been doing the research this whole time, but now we have this vehicle and we're pretty excited about it.
Nice. I actually don't know if you've thought too much about this, so you can feel free to pass on this question, but in the like Web 2 world, private companies are staying private longer, right? We see a lot of people taking like the Stripe model and just never really going public and maybe giving employees and founders liquidity via secondaries instead of the public markets. And now there's more capital in the private markets than ever before. On the other side though, in the Web 3 or the crypto markets, you actually see folks getting liquidity earlier than ever in history with tokens, right? You might have a token that goes live at your Series A. Do you have thoughts on what is the right model here?
Well, they're both right because they can be done, but we think tokenization is going to be huge. I mean, we'd love to be able to tokenize our venture fund or our crypto revolutions fund. So I think the regulations are starting to open up in a way that will allow us to do that. So we'd like to seize the moment. In terms of companies staying private for longer, I think the world's going more transparent and more democratized. And I think that's part of this Web 3 movement. And so the zeitgeist out there, I think, is going to favor that world as opposed to the closed and more opaque world.
Maybe we can shift from the investing landscape more into what we talked about a couple of weeks ago over dinner, which is actually less on investing, more on the advice for company builders, right? I'm looking out, I see some familiar faces in the audience. There's actually a lot of financial institutions here, enterprises, banking executives. How does everything that you invest in, especially on the AI and crypto front, how is that going to impact the roles of these company builders over the next couple of years? And what kind of advice would you give to them, and how should they think about building their businesses?
Well, yes, as we discussed, I think I go back to the early days of the internet and how little we understood about what was going to happen and how big the opportunity became. Well, as I mentioned, this is the next generation internet, a very important layer that we're building in here now, finally. And I think that while some may be discouraged by the incredible amount of volatility in this new asset class, I think that's just, first of all, the volatility is diminishing. I know it doesn't seem like that. And as this new asset class matures and these new technologies mature, I think the opportunities are going to be enormous, beyond what we can imagine right now. And as we started this conversation, we are seeing the convergence between and among technologies. And when you think about that, you've got each of these technologies. The easiest one for me to explain, help bring this to life, is one where we're close to reaching now. So robo-taxis, autonomous taxi networks, that's the convergence of three major innovation platforms: robotics, autonomous vehicles are robots, energy storage, they will be electric, AI, they'll be powered by AI. And I'm sure there are going to be payment mechanisms tripped by AI that the blockchain technology will be feeding into. So think about that. Those convergences, each one of these technologies alone would have an S-curve, so slowly, then all at once. They are all converging now at a time when they're getting ready for prime time. So you're going to have one S-curve feeding in another S-curve, and really, we are starting to think these are super exponential growth opportunities for that reason. And I think if you keep your eye on the prize, you're going to do very well in this environment. Just think about it. 30 years ago, many people were dismissing the internet. And look at the fortunes that have been built on the internet. Well, this is the next generation, and we actually think it could be bigger.
Yeah. Our eyes are on the prize. Kathy, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Yano. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.